and welcome back to my channel. I would like to give a shout out to my grandma and my grandpa and wish them a very happy 61st wedding anniversary. That is so awesome. When my husband and I first got together, like the year before we got married, they were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. And then last year we traveled down and celebrated with them their 60th and now 61, so it's so exciting. And not too many marriages make it quite that far past the half-century mark for sure, so that is very exciting. So happy anniversary to you. There are a few anniversaries that we are celebrating in May. I mentioned in my anniversary of the evacuation video a happy anniversary to my aunt and uncle. And May 15th was my anniversary with my husband. 10 years. It's so hard to believe it's been 10 years. May 29th was the anniversary of his brother and sister-in-law. They are celebrating 20 years. May 20th. So very exciting to them. So a happy wedding anniversary. 20 years to my brother and sister-in-law as well. That's so incredible and amazing, and marriages today don't usually last even 20 years, so congratulations. Lots to celebrate in May. So I have been married 10 years. My husband and I got together in 2007, got engaged in January of 2010, and got married May 15th of 2010. So it has been a crazy journey, and we have definitely lived through some things in the past 10 years. And it's exciting and interesting to see what will happen in the next 10 years. We were 2 years into our marriage, and we dealt with something that was very personal to me and Sebastian that hit us as a couple. And it was something that could have affected the rest of the family, but thankfully we were able to work it out on the couple level and did not adversely affect anybody else. So, and we are still here together 8 years past that time. So we have, in our 10-year marriage, experienced something that was attacked us on a very personal level. And that was in 2012, about 10 months after our daughter was born. Our first child was born. In 2013, 2 weeks before that said child turned 2 years old, we were in a pretty bad car accident, which put that child into the hospital for a week. She fractured the eye socket, and she is perfectly fine. There were no complications or anything from that fracture. It was, I don't want to say touch and go. She was coming in out of consciousness after the accident. They put her in a coma at the hospital that we went to for emergency, and then once they transferred her to the children's hospital and could do further testing, they discovered it was just a broken bone, essentially. It just happened to be right on her face. Broke this eye socket, and there's a part down here that will, if you're like punched or get like a really bad blow to the face, this part down here will collapse to help protect the eyeball. But the problem with that is the muscle that controls your eye movement can get trapped under there, and then obviously if the blood flow is cut off for too long, it would die, and then you'd have some complications. So they did a very minor surgery. They did like a little cut or something and pulled that out, and she was fine. And we spent 7 days in the hospital, being released 1 week before her second birthday. And we also, the day of our accident, our second daughter had turned 7 weeks old that day, and the accident was 2 days after Christmas. It was a very stressful time and definitely impacted us as a family. So within 3 years of marriage, 3.5 years of marriage, we experienced a personal thing and a family, something that affected us as a family. Then, as my video just went up a few weeks ago, we experienced something that hit us on a level of where we live and the town that we live in, and we were evacuated from our home due to a forest fire. So living through something that affected 88,000 people was a really interesting and unique experience, and it was so weird to just feel like we are going through this and there's 88,000 other people who at this very moment understand what we're going through, plus people who have been through evacuations and fires before that, but just in that very moment experiencing something that affected us on the community level, which did not personally affect any other part of our family except for my mother-in-law, who is here when we evacuated, and then my father-in-law was already in Edmonton, so he experienced having to wait for his wife, son, and his family to get out of town. And the fact that they have 4 properties up here, none of which were affected by the fire, thankfully. But yeah, so that was really interesting. And now, just under 10 years of marriage, we are experiencing a pandemic that is affecting the entire world. So it has definitely been a very interesting 10 years, and the things that have affected us personally and our family and our community and now the world. So for all of you who have been married for more than a week, what are your pieces of advice to stay married through the thick, the thin, the good, the bad, the scary, the stressful? Maya colored a very pretty fox. Very nice, Maya. Thank you. Somebody did their makeup today. So, just like my Mother's Day vlog, I talked about all the books that I've read as a mom. Well, let's talk about marriage. I got all my books here. There's lots of them. When I got married, I felt like we had been dating 2.5 years, and I felt like I was as prepared as I could possibly be. I had done all the work for doing pre-marriage counseling and reading books and all that stuff, and I was as prepared as I could possibly be, and the only thing left to do was to get married and just jump in and, you know, take the test. It wasn't part of our pre-marriage counseling, but friends of ours who got married the year before, they did this 2 years before we got married. Anyways, they had to do this through their pre-marriage counseling, and they thought that the video that they watched was so hilarious, they ended up buying it and then sharing it with us, and we thought it was so hilarious that we went out and bought it and shared it with so many other people. I've seen this guy live at a church event. I've bought his book that he signed for me at the event, and then his wife signed it as well, who sadly passed away a couple years ago. But I am talking about Mark Gungor and Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. This guy changed my views on Christianity and who got me seriously into, like, deeper into faith and accepting God and understanding God, as well as marriage and relationships. And he is the reason why I have the marriage that I have today and the faith that I have today, really, all stemming from his video, Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. And then I read the book. So if you guys don't know Mark Gungor, he does the, like, his brain, her brain skits and stuff, and you can watch those on YouTube. They are there, and I highly recommend them for sure, whether you are just dating, engaged, or you're just newly married, or you've been married 10, 20, or 61 years, you can still get something out of his videos for sure. And it is Christian, but I still think there is something for everybody, and the basic principles of marriage are the same no matter who you are or what you believe. So definitely I would check out Mark Gungor. He has a podcast of his church sermons, which are just like Mark Gungor audio. And he also had a marriage podcast that he did for a long time, but I think with his wife Debbie, as she was getting sicker and stuff, that kind of fell to the wayside. If you just go on like iTunes or any podcast and just search up Mark Gungor, you would probably see it. But his marriage one, I would definitely, if they're still there, the old ones, I would definitely check it out. Another resource I talk about a lot is Debbie Chavez, and she has her own ministry called SOS, Squadron of Sisters. They are all about marriage and women and getting together and lifting each other up, fighting for your marriage, your family, your home, things like that. Definitely a lot of resources, and I will link her website below as well, and she has a YouTube channel where she gives couple-minute videos about different areas in marriage, and I highly recommend her. And I've been listening to her podcast for over 10 years, and a lot of the books I get are from her, and I heard about her because of Mark Gungor, and they used to do a show together. This is the one that I would buy for like everybody who's getting married for sure. And it also is blurbed at the top. Mark has written a fun and enlightening book that can help all couples communicate and understand each other better, by John Gray, author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, which was a book I read at the beginning of my relationship with Sebastian. Me and my friend both read it. Another Mark Gungor book on his website, which I have not bought yet, but I have listened to the sermons and him talking about it and everything. There is a book for men, for the husbands to read about the wives, and for the wives to read about the husbands. The men one is called Treat Her Like a Truck, and the women one, I believe, is called Treat Him Like a Dog. I know they sound bad, and I haven't read them again, but every chapter talks about why you would treat her like a truck, or treat her like this or that or whatever. So definitely I would check those out. I just haven't bought them yet because I've listened to the podcast and the sermons on them, and I just haven't had the money, as I'd have to buy them, I think, from his website. One I did get, which may have been, I think I might have picked it up at the Laugh Your Way conference, is the Beatitudes. So if you read the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew in the Bible, there's the Beatitudes that he talks about. And so that's a kind of a play on words, and it's the Beatitudes of marriage and 9 simple steps to a healthier and happier marriage. So you could read this like in one sitting, or you and your husband could sit down, or you and your spouse, I don't know who's listening to this, you and your partner could sit down and read like one attitude a night and talk about it, kind of thing. And I'll just read what the attitudes are. So there's 9 of them. Be nice, be content, be connected, be prepared, be proactive, be clear, be doers, be patient, and be dead. And it's only 65 pages. And then there's a spot at the back. There's like a blank page for notes. So that's kind of cool. So Mark Unger, definitely. I picked up The Excellent Wife, A Biblical Perspective by Martha Peace, along with the workbook back in 2012. It is very conservative, so I would keep that in mind. But if you are a conservative Christian and looking for a way to better your marriage and have a more biblical perspective on being a wife and being married and stuff, I would recommend it. I would say it is outdated. This is the 10th anniversary edition, and it came out originally in 1995. So this one was like updated, expanded edition, so it's updated, but it's still from 2005, and it is, like I said, very conservative. But it's something I was just going through a very hard time, and through some of the counseling that I was doing, they recommended this book, so I went through that and did the study guide. For everyone who watched Fireproof, and The Love Dare came out, so of course we got that. This is also one, I don't think we made it all the way through, but it's the movie. Fireproof is definitely, it's not the best acting necessarily, it's not the highest production value, but super important message, I think, to it. So I would definitely watch the movie. And then if you want to do The Love Dare, definitely a challenge for you to do if you're not feeling so loving and need to get through a hard time in your marriage. It's definitely something to check out. Again, I talked about in my Mother's Day vlog, Stormy O'Mardian, who does The Power of a Praying. So I got The Power of a Praying Husband and Wife, and then The Power of Prayer to Change Your Marriage. So these are all very important ones that you can have. I think I also picked them up in 2012. Again, it's ones where you just read every day, whatever challenge you're facing, basically. So like Power of Prayer for your marriage. It's like if communication breaks down, if anger, rudeness, or abuse poisons your relationship, if forgiveness doesn't come easy, if depression or negative emotions spoil the atmosphere, things like that. So you just pick, again, read through it cover to cover, but also pull it out and be like, I'm struggling with children in our marriage right now, outside influences, things like that. And then again, specifically for the wife or the husband. Good books to have, tools in your toolkit. Kathy Lipp, I am reading right now for The Overwhelmed. So she's also very funny and somebody I've listened to on Debbie Chavez. And this is The Husband Project, 21 Days of Loving Your Man on Purpose and with a Plan. So it's just about intentionally showing love to your husband. A lot of people think like, oh, he's not showing love to me, why should I show love to him? He's not respectful to me, why should I be respectful to him? But in a marriage, a marriage is about sacrifice. And if you want your marriage to work, sometimes you just have to sacrifice things and do something for them and be nice to them and show them kindness, even if they're not being that way to you. Sometimes you just have to be loving. And you have to be the one to break the cycle of rudeness or disrespect or unloving things like feelings and emotions and stuff going on. And you just have to take that step. This is not a vlog to talk about abuse. And if your marriage is like severely damaged or anything like that, this is not the vlog. This is not the place for that. And there are lots of resources out there. And if you want help finding those resources, you can definitely message me and talk to me personally about those things. I am here to listen and I will help you as best as I possibly can. But if you're just having like normal marriage tiffs and just in a rut, or things just aren't going well, or you're butting heads too much, these are excellent books to read, or something fun a little bit more fun like this, which is just challenges that you can do for your husband, which I did once many years ago and should probably do again. So maybe he won't watch this and remind me. If you're more of a theologian and like the theological side of things and you want to read about like God's purpose for marriage, Gary Thomas, Sacred Marriage, What If God Designed Marriage to Make Us Holy More Than to Make Us Happy? This is a book I read probably closer to the beginning of our marriage, so it's been about 10 years. I've definitely highlighted some things in here, so it's a book I would have to reread again, but it's a heavy book, like it's theology, so it's not like a lighthearted, easy read for sure, but if you are more into theology, definitely Gary Thomas. Sacred Marriage. Grace-Filled Marriage by Tim Kimmel with Darcy Kimmel. The Missing Piece, The Place to Start. I don't think I've read this one yet, so this is one I definitely have to put on my TBR soon, so I can't tell you really what it's about. What's grace got to do with it? The missing ingredient in most marriages isn't love, it's grace. Love inclines us to get married, but we need grace to keep that love healthy, strong, and committed. More than simply nice, grace is that game-changing ingredient that enables us to treat each other the way God treats us, even when we don't deserve it. So in Grace-Filled Marriage, Kimmel explores questions such as, how can you show grace when all your spouse seems to do right now is frustrate you? How can grace ramp up the frequency and temperature of your sex life? How do you show grace without being taken advantage of? And how can God help you make grace the default mode in your marriage? Whether your marriage is just beginning, seems healthy, or is struggling on life support, a deeper understanding of the power of grace will help it not just survive, but thrive. So definitely something I'll have to pick up soon. And then there are some hard books to read. I picked up this one mostly because it's by a famous pastor's wife. Why I Stayed, The Choices I Made in My Darkest Hour by Gail Haggard, because of Ted Haggard's scandal. He was a senior pastor of a 14,000 member New Life Church and the highly esteemed president of the National Association of Evangelicals. More importantly, he was Gail's loving husband of 28 years, her closest friend, a devoted father to their 5 children, and a man she thought she knew fully. But when Ted told Gail that parts of the allegations were true, her world shattered. Suddenly, everything in her life was at stake. Her beliefs, her marriage, her family, and her ministry. What has happened since then is nothing short of astonishing. Gail Haggard never imagined she would be reading these headlines. She couldn't believe her ears when she heard a man on the radio accuse her husband, Ted, of using illegal drugs and having a 3-year homosexual affair with him. It was inconceivable. So this is the story of how they reconciled their marriage after allegations of drugs and a homosexual affair. And like I said, the senior pastor of a 14,000 member church. So obviously that came crashing down. And it was a really sad read, not just from the marriage perspective of it, which had, I would say, a happy ending because they stayed together. And I'm not against divorce, but I think that the enemy is definitely out there to take out marriages and break apart families. When I first started reading marriage books and planning on getting married and being married, I was very passionate about marriage. The Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage, I was very passionate about that stuff, and I would kind of wish I could be a marriage counselor and help people stay married and fix their marriages and stuff. But that's not to say there's never a place for divorce or a reason for divorce. Again, this vlog is not about serious things. If you are in an abusive relationship, if you are in an abusive marriage, you need to safely find a way to get away from that person. Divorce or not, you need to physically distance yourself from a dangerous situation and get help. This was sad also because happy in the sense that they reconciled and found healing and forgiveness, but sad in the way that the church treated them, because yes, what he did was like this horrendous thing behind her back, having a homosexual affair. And I know some people might be like cringing at that. I'm not here to say anything about the homosexual affair part, just the affair part of it is what I'll focus on. It doesn't matter who it was with, the fact he had an affair and broke trust in that relationship with the illegal drugs and everything. But the way the church treated them and just totally shut them out and was like, no, you can't be a part of this church anymore. He obviously wasn't the senior pastor anymore and he stepped down, and that's a good thing. Like, he shouldn't be being a senior pastor when he's going through such horrendous sin and brokenness, and he needs to get to a better place in his life. and healing and forgiveness and all of that. Like, I understand him not continuing to perform the role of pastor, but just the way they excommunicated them, basically, and they were going through one of the hardest times in their lives, and now they don't have the support of the church, and that is wrong. And I don't agree with that at all. Not saying that every member in the church was like that, not saying every church is like that, just their own personal experience. So it was a really hard read that way, and I was angry at the church, this specific church, and the way they were treated in that. But if you want a book to read about forgiveness and love and reconciliation, this is definitely a good book. And on that topic, I also have another book. And again, this is, like I said, I want to be like a marriage counselor or mentor or something. I would totally be into that. So I read a lot of books, a lot of marriage books. So Healing Your Marriage When Trust is Broken, Finding Forgiveness and Restoration. So there's a lot of reasons why trust can be broken in a marriage, from an affair, from doing illegal drugs, or even just having like a prescription drug addiction that you're not being honest with, porn addiction, any kind of addiction, gambling, spending all your money on, you know, whatever that is not agreed upon within the marriage. There's a lot of reasons why trust is broken in a marriage, and you can't have a marriage if your trust is broken. So it is very important to build that trust back up. Again, it's been a long time since I've read this. 8 years at least, maybe 7. So the chapters are like when the walls come tumbling down, the storm of questions, the quest for real answers, learning to cope, and finding a way back to life. When will I stop hurting? How can I learn to trust and forgive? And leaning on the strength of others and whatever it takes. So it's their personal story of broken trust and how they got back to having a good and healthy relationship. So it's been a while since I read it, but definitely another good tool to have in your marriage toolkit. Anyways, I'm going to end that here because I talk a lot and these videos get very long. Happy anniversary again to all the May anniversaries, and to everybody who's watching this. If you have an anniversary coming up or just passed, happy anniversary. I hope you are all doing well. Again, you can private message me if you need to talk about anything. I'm here to listen and help as best as I can. I have only been married 10 years, so I have a lot more experience than some and a lot less experience than others. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!